Hello, creatives. Welcome back. Thank you for continuing to watch my podcast or listening to my podcast. I appreciate that you're here. And I just want to thank all of you who have continued to be following me. I always want to send out my dearest gratitude to all of you because it helps me feel like what I have to share here, and mostly because I want to help all of you creatives, to really strengthen that relationship with your creativity and to really use your creativity far beyond just making the masterpiece, the project, right? So that is my goal for all of you. So I am always so thankful that you're here listening. Also, I want you to also give yourself credit for being here, because that means that you are wanting to grow creatively and personally. Maybe there's areas in your life that you want to transform, because I believe that that is part of the power of creativity, is that it can transform us personally into that part of us that maybe we don't even know we can get to that place, but we have an inkling or a vision of what we can be, right? And I call that our higher self, our higher purpose. So I want you, if you're listening to this and you've been continuing to follow me, give yourself a pat on the back for being here, and give yourself credit for just being inspired to be here and listen. So anyway, in this episode, I want to share a personal story with you, because I think it's important to share in terms of giving you an understanding of why my relationship with creativity has been a lifelong thing, a lifelong journey, and why creativity has, in many ways, always been the reliable thing for me, even though I have to say it's been kind of like sometimes a bittersweet relationship. But I think overall, creativity has always been a source of support for me. So this story is about when I was much younger and, still trying to figure things out. I was in a dysfunctional relationship. It's the kind of relationship that ending the relationship has been long overdue, and now you're just kind of buying time. And I knew deep down inside, this is what I had to do. I knew that even though it was unknown, the future was unknown, I knew this was going to be a major pivotal point in my life, but I had to end the relationship. I had to get out of the relationship for many different reasons. It wasn't healthy for me. I had lost myself in many ways. So, and the reason why I stayed in it for years was I was terrified of being alone. And to be honest, I was, at that time in my life, couldn't even comprehend what that meant, because I was always in a relationship. And I didn't know what it was like to be alone and to, just not be in a relationship. So that terrified me and also kept me almost paralyzed. So I knew that ending this relationship was going to be majorly pivotal for me, and that it had to be done. So eventually I did it, went cold turkey, get the courage to end that relationship so I could move on wherever that moving on was to. And I have to say that what really stands out for me with that memory, when I think back about it, is that it was around the holidays that it happened. There was something about the holidays, right? December, moving into a new year, that gets you really thinking about change and transition. What do I want to change in my life? And it was one of those times. But I remember sitting alone in my apartment. I hadn't been alone in my apartment for so long. I immersed myself in making holiday gifts. And it was arts and crafts, yeah. Nothing really artsy, right? It was just it was just playing with my hands and making things. And I remember that moment. It really felt like I was returning to myself. And it really felt like in that moment, creativity was my companion. And it was not only my companion so I didn't feel so lonely, but that I could heal and I could regroup and reconnect with the thing that I love doing, which was making things, and doing art. And I remember that moment saying, you know what? I think I'm going to be okay. And that was a very distinct moment that I remember because creativity in that moment became the rock that I could stand on. It was the thing that I could lean on. It was the companion that I needed when I felt afraid to be alone. And I feel like it was also kind of that stepping stone as I was transitioning into a different place in my life. So I wanted to share that story because that is what creativity has been for me for many situations throughout my life. And I have come to know that creativity is the thing that I know I can rely on. And in how it's played different roles throughout my life, particularly through change and difficult times. Because when we're going through difficult times like a loss of a parent, a loss of a job, or having, losing your job, that can be an unexpected change that happens. And then all of a sudden, it's like pulling the rug out of underneath you. You lose your foundation, you lose the thing that you had kind of thought, oh, it's going to always be there. But I found for me personally, I could always rely on creativity to get me through those times. Because in reality, life is always bringing change. And I know there's a lot of people, including me, who just love to just say, gosh, if it could just stay the same, right? If things could just be routine, the same, I would feel more secure, more comfortable. And I think that's why sometimes it's good to get out of our element and out of our routine so that we don't get into that comfort zone. But I think what happens is, we get kind of thrown off when change happens without us really wanting it to happen. So I think what we need to think about is that creativity can be a very powerful tool and skill to help us get through those uncertainty and those transitions that kind of come up. There are times that these things come up and we don't even know. We might be sideswiped by them. Maybe we see them coming and we don't know how to handle it. So, that's one of the reasons why I want to share that experience, because I believe creativity can be an additional tool to help you get through that. Because what happens with change and the uncertainty is that there's a lot of stuff that comes up for us when we're going through it. And I think what happens is that we easily get unclear on what to do. Sometimes we're paralyzed. We don't know what's the next step. What do I need to do? There are times when we are so flooded with a variety of emotions. Sometimes it's anger, fear, depression, sadness, anxiety. It can be a flood of emotions. And then also, we can experience that paralysis, like, I just don't know what to do. And then we feel also that we have to think ourselves through it. And so we're up here, we're up in the human brain trying to figure it all out, trying to assess all the options and the decisions we need to make. And don't get me wrong, that's important. But I think that we have this imbalance of not balancing out with the sensing. And creativity is associated and related to the sensing. What am I sensing? What's my intuition telling me? Because there's a lot of, I believe, intelligence and wisdom within the intuition, within that instincts. And sometimes we're already thinking it through because, and I think there's nothing wrong with this, because I believe we've been conditioned to do that, right? We're conditioned through the educational system, through society, that we have to figure it out, think our way through this, or problem solve it, and then we'll feel better. Versus just trying to work through all of that with that sort of balance of, let me give myself some time to be present so that I can listen to my intuition, that I can sense where I'm supposed to go, that I can connect with who I am, what's my values, what's important to me, so that I can make intellectual decisions also based on that. So I think that that's important to think about, because what happens is when we try to think it through, we may find, and maybe perhaps some of you feel this way now with everything going on in the world, that that's not quite working. If we only rely on the linear part of our brain, the thinking brain, it doesn't work. It only works to some extent, but then there's an imbalance. And this is where self-care comes in, because I believe that creativity is a form of self-care. And the reason why it's a form of self-care is because when you're creating, when you're moving your hand, like whether it's writing poetry, doing mark making, collaging, putting a swash of watercolor on paper, when you're doing that, you're getting out of your mind, and it does give you that sense of presence. And that sense of presence gives you clarity. It gets you connected to what's important to you. Because when we're in this sort of chaos of change and transition and uncertainty, it can easily be very confusing. Sometimes we don't know what direction to go. And there's so much coming at us, right? Because there's so many, suddenly there's 101 decisions to make. So I think that it's important to think about when you do something creative, it gives you that space to get grounded. I call that creative grounding, where you can get grounded, centered, connected to that inner wisdom that can give you guidance through that change. It can also give you, like I talked to you about my experience, it can give you that sense of companionship, that sense that someone's there to support you so that you don't feel so alone. Because I think that's really important to feel, because we can feel very alone when we're going through change and uncertainty. So one of the things that I want to say is that I know for some of you, this might sound Pollyanna, woo-woo, creative. Should I just create my way through uncertainty or through chaos, or, and I say it's really a balance. Trust me, I'm the first one that loves to intellectualize things, but I'm always trying to balance that out. And I know that when I return to creativity, doing something creative, artistic, it balances it out, and it really helps. It really has helped me to then take the necessary steps forward. So I don't think it's a Pollyanna thing, because I can get into all the research that's been done about what happens to the brain, what happens to our physical body, our parasympathetic body, nervous system, and all of that when we're creating. I'm not going to bore you with that, but there's so much out there now. And this is not new. It's been, it's been there for many, many years. People have been doing art therapy. Artists have been doing this even not knowing it was therapy. So I think it's important to think about creativity in a very different way. So one of the things I think is important is that in order to begin to accept creativity as a powerful tool in your life, we need to we need to deconstruct some of those ideas that creativity is only, for left to do when you have extra time or you're retired, or it's a luxury, right? It's a hobby, it's a luxury. It's not necessarily considered a productive thing to do. Or it's the thing that artists do if you're a professional artist or a professional creative person doing it as a career, right? So those ideas tend to prevent us from actually utilizing this powerful tool that all of us already have and use it as a way to sustain well-being and mental and spiritual wellness, right? If we thought of that as part of our wellness routine, we try to exercise, we try to go to a doctor, take our supplements, get enough sleep, all of that we give the credit to that as being part of our self-care and wellness, but we don't think of it as, well, creativity should be part of that. And so that's one of the things that I wanted to emphasize, is that we might need to think a little differently about what creativity is, that it's not just for those taking an art class on the weekend, right? Or for those who are retired, right? I think that it's something that you can implement in your life now, no matter where you're at. And this is talking about something that you find is creative, that gives you that feeling of groundedness, the feeling of I'm returning back to myself. And I'm talking about, that could be cooking, that could be gardening, that could be scribbling on paper. When you think about it, there's a reason why we instinctually doodle. I think, sometimes people say, well, I don't really do art, I just doodle. As if somehow that is a less worthy form of art. When actually doodling, I think, or even scribbling or mark making, is a human instinct for self-soothing, for boredom, for maybe helping your nervous system calm down. And we didn't even know it. We just did it, right? So I'm just giving you some things to think about, because I think it's important that we begin to develop a self-awareness around when we are feeling, unsteady, or we're feeling like the world is just too much, and I don't know if my nervous system can handle one more bad news, right? Or one more thing on the news, or one more natural disaster, or I know something's coming and I'm starting to feel anxious about it, but I really need to prep myself. That's what creativity can help us. Because I think it's important during this time where things are changing, and things have been changing since the pandemic, and we don't know where things are going. I think it's important for us as a human race to take responsibility for ourselves, to be steady, to be grounded, to operate in a compassionate, kind, and whole way. In other words, we need to be responsible for our wholeness. We can't wait for some solution to fall from the sky, or that things are going to get better, or things will get back to normal, right? I don't know if we can actually rely on that. change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the ones that we've been waiting for. We are the change that we seek. Barack Obama. So this is why I feel so strongly about encouraging you to consider using creativity as another tool for mind, body, spirit wellness. Because I think that it comes back to us. When we are a whole person, when we are filled up, right? Spiritually, mentally, emotionally, when we feel full and we are okay, just like I told you, I felt like I couldn't leave that relationship because I didn't believe I was going to be okay. And that whole idea of I'm okay, I couldn't comprehend it until I experienced it. And then I realized there was so much more I could give to the world and to the people in my life because I was okay. And that's what it comes down to, is when you can implement different things in your life that make you feel okay, make you feel whole, you're going to be a more grounded person to offer whatever needs to be offered to the people in your life, your family, as well as make a difference in the world. I believe we can make a difference in the world if we work on ourselves and transform, and also, most importantly, develop that emotional resilience so that when things come up, we feel it, we have thoughts around it, we have an emotional reaction around it, we sense it, but we're not knocked down by it, or we're not suddenly unglued by it, right? I just want to take a moment to pause and remind you that change is not a bad thing. Sometimes when we're going through change, it can feel challenging. But I'm here to remind you that when we go through change, it's an opportunity for us to grow and transform into the person that we were meant to be. And when we are open to that, we actually affect the people in our lives. Here are some inspiring words from Eckhart Tolle. True change happens within, not without. Find the now within. Everybody you come in contact with will be touched by your presence and affected by the peace that you emanate, whether they are conscious of it or not. So like I said, when we're going through change and transition, there's a lot of stuff going on inside us. We have to consider that we will have some flood of emotions, that sort of ebb and flow of different emotions. We're going to experience a sense of grief and loss when we go through change. And then we're in that in-between stage, right? Where we're trying to let go of the past, we're in limbo, we're not quite arrived at the future yet, but we're kind of in between, and that can feel unsteady. And all those things that come up, one of the things that I wanted to offer was an opportunity to address some of this stuff when we go through change or uncertainty. In other words, having creative practices to help you navigate those situations and those times. Because what I know is life will guarantee in life, unexpected change will happen. Especially at this stage in my life, it's happened so many different times, that it's like just part of life. And we can't really control whether it's going to happen to us or not. We have to prepare ourselves best way we can with the tools to help us get us through. So I'm offering this 6-week program called Art is Your Anchor, and I address all this stuff in that program. And each week I'll go over different aspects of what happens through change and transition and uncertainty. And then I also give you an art practice because I think it's important to have a variety of art practices that you can turn to during those moments when you feel lonely, when you feel anxious or depressed, when you feel that you've lost yourself, all of those things. I want to give you a variety of art practices that you can turn to. So in the 6-week program, which is it's a virtual hybrid, so every Sunday you'll get a lesson in your email, and that will also come with a demonstration of the art practice so that you can actually do it. And these art practices are easy. You do not have to have art experience. I make it very easy for you to do. And then you'll be able to even repeat it whenever you need to. And then I'm also offering a chance for all of us to come together live where we can maybe share some of the epiphanies that came up. Maybe there are some questions you want to ask about the lessons, and just connect with other people who are trying to develop this emotional resilience through creativity. So I want to share that with you. I hope that you will consider joining because I'm excited about this program. It is the first time I'm actually doing something like this and then making it available so you can do it on your own schedule. And I've really broken it down because I think in many areas right now, experts are trying to provide the tools for all of us to be able to get through some of these tough times and some of these times of uncertainty. So check that out. I'll put the link in the show notes, and I hope you'll consider joining because I think it'll be really beneficial to you, especially if you're feeling like everything you're doing isn't quite working for you or helping you cope. This might really be another tool that you can actually implement and maybe see some results because it's different. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. So until next time, take care and stay creative. Bye.